Welcome in. It's Wednesday, Preps to Olympians, and are we going deep on some preps? Yes, we are. We are going LA boys basketball high school players, New York City boys basketball high school players. Now, it could be the surrounding areas, no problem. And we're staying with boys on this one. We're going to do another one with the girls, but this is going to be some fun. I got my boy Chris Lebron, Off the Ball podcast. He's coming on, repping New York City. That's why I'm trying to stay neutral here. This is my high school. That's right. We went 1982 CIF champions. They produced. So, all right. So I'm repping my high school, repping New York. Marley, we're going to let people call in today. She's producing the show. Jimbo's producing as far as executive producer. She's the boss. And Marley, we're going to let some people call in, right? Okay. See that? Barnaby Jones, if he can call in to our dirty, non-working, obsolete payphone, you can too. See that guy? You know who that is? No, the other guy, Mar. The other guy, he's calling in too. He uses his car phone. That's Frank Cannon. He is ex-Korea war vet. He also is ex-LAPD. He also roams the streets of Los Angeles in the early 70s. Private investigating, doing that kind of work. Let's start the show. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon aims to bring its subscribers interesting, unique, and uplifting stories. You can find us at sportstoriespodcast.com. We drop audio and video podcasts every Thursday and go live on YouTube Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Many guests have shared their stories with host Denny Lennon, such as Super Bowl and BCS champions Brendan Ion Badejo, Peter Boulware, and Trevor Lawrence, three-time Olympic gold medalist Karch Karai, Kentucky Derby winner Doug O'Neill, NCAA champions Toby Bailey and St. John Smith, Hall of Famers Jimmy Lennon Jr., Rudy Tomjanovich, world champions Boom Boom Mancini and Tim Leary, AAU Sullivan Award winners Catherine Plummer, Sabrina Ionescu, and Spencer Lee, not to mention the head honcho, AAU president Dr. Roger Gowdy. We've also had best-selling authors Wesley King and Wayne Coffey, and our Sports Stories favorite, Norm Bass, the first African-American to play two professional sports post-World War II. Become a friend of the show on Patreon, and you can help keep the dream alive. Go to patreon.com/Denny Lennon or go to our website to see all of our social media links. If you have an interesting, unique, or uplifting story to tell, contact us on sportstoriespodcast.com.
Coming to you live from Los Angeles. We're in the shadow of LAX. It's a top-rated video podcast in the Centinela Adobe Corridor. It's where we share a wall with the Korean United Methodists, and you can see St. Jerome Church from our back porch. We're in the 7428 studio where Jimbo and Marley run the show, and Buck kicks back until he's got to kick it out. It's SSDL Live at 5 on YouTube. That's right. You heard it. The top-rated video podcast in the Centinela Adobe Corridor. Pretty good. It's pretty good. Top 5 state. Hey, we're going to get right at this. My family here, I hope so. How about my St. Mark people, my St. Bernard people? Let's hope so. All right. How about my VBC and AAUers? We're all doing this together. All right. Top 5 states. Top 5 states outside of California watching the show. Delaware. Is that even a state? I guess it is. All right. Wisconsin, Texas, New York. Thank you. New York coming strong. They know what the subject matter is today. And OH. They do what they do in Ohio. We know that about them. I got my AAU. No, it's that one. AAU banner hanging up because who else is ubiquitous with the club basketball scene but the AAU, right? And where do they want to go if they're great? Right there. See that? To Coach Lennon. Best wishes, John Wooden. Marley, what did we do this week?
Oh,
Let's see. I should put my hat on, right?
That's why you go that way.
Never seen LA. We always on Tuesday go find Utah. Give me 2. That's right. That's Gary Busey from the great movie Point Break. I said great. And that's another one of Nevers. And that one's in Culver City. Look at that. I overlooked it. I'm on that street all the time. All right. We tell you the story about Jonas Never as a great muralist here in Los Angeles. Every Tuesday we drop that. Okay. Epperson episode is number 53. The volleyball festival is and did redefine youth sports. And that's the guy right there, the architect, Dave Epperson. We visited him in Houston last December. We were able to put together the interview and I'm dropping it on our video podcast tomorrow. Dope. Oh, yeah, that's me on other people's podcasts. Brandon Sports Talk. I went on that one. That's my boy Brandon right there. Where else did I go on? I think I was on with tomorrow. I'm on the Benchwarmers and Burners podcast. I don't know if Burners, it's like one of those phones I used on the wire or if it's all right. And then Friday, happy hour. That's right. You know, that is Eric Helwig. Bring in the Backups podcast. He is hilarious. If you haven't heard this podcast, you're going to want to check it out. I love how he focuses on backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And then he dives in deep. He's a comedian. He's been a working comedian for a long time. And so he's coming in. Yeah, he's been on America Got Talent and so forth. And so he's coming on. We're going to have a fun Friday. That's the happy hour show. Friday when we get happy. All right. So we did that. What do we do next? Twitter. All right, you know, we're doing what we can on Twitter. There's my Twitter handle. Love it if you follow me. One of the ones we've been going over that's played out over 6 weeks now is we have put Karch Karai and St. John Smith, the two greatest men beach, Karch indoor certainly, volleyball players of all time, up against one another in a best-of-7 competition to determine the king of the beach. You can see right there in my tweet, it's tied at 3-3. How exciting is that? Game 7, the deciding one. Now, remember, this is all things that have to do with them other than directly on the beach volleyball court. And Game 7, don't know, but I might open it up in a poll. How about that? Okay. Also on Twitter, just want to give a shout out to my boy Sam Lagana, the stadium voice of the Los Angeles Rams. That's Sam. And Sam forgot his anyways, look at what Sam's wearing. Do you know how many of these masks I've given to Carlos at Casablanca? Never once has he wore it. But look at Sam wore this. Thank you, Sam. All right. Hey, today we're talking about your favorite or who you consider the best high school players of all time from the cities of LA and New York City. We're not excluding the girls division. We're going to come after that soon enough. And we're not excluding all the other cities. We'll come after that soon enough. I was just inspired when I recently went on Chris Lebron's Off the Ball podcast to chat this up. Told him how important high school basketball was. So that's what we're getting after today. We got Randy Rosenbloom. He'll be on the show. He's been a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and prep sports is one of his specialties. Also bringing on Carlos Haro. I know I make fun of Carlos a lot because it's what I do. I used to coach him. But Carlos was actually a veteran, maybe a pawn, of the sneaker wars on the backside of Sonny Vaccaro, leaving Nike and moving towards Adidas. Carlos was an unwitting provider of shoes and gear to high school athletes. So he saw all kind of basketball players back in the day. Exciting, right? So we're going to bring them out. We're all going to talk about our favorites. But since it's my show, I get to lead off. So let's get it going. All right, I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of great influences. When I was 8 years old, I got to watch the Lakers practice. Are you kidding? I grew up with UCLA basketball. But when I talk about high school basketball, there's nobody that sticks out of my mind quicker than a guy at St. Monica High School in Santa Monica. His name was Leon Wood. Now, Leon Wood, you might recognize later in life. As a matter of fact, we dug in and tried to find some high school pictures of Leon, and we couldn't find them. I'm sure I got some St. Monica people that either come on the show or follow me on Facebook that could have provided, but we didn't get them in time. That's Leon when he went to go play at Cal State Fullerton. He ended up leading the nation in assists at Cal State Fullerton, then went to the 1984 Olympic team. Yeah, the one with Jordan on it. That would be the last amateur Olympic team that won a gold medal, and he set an Olympic record for the most assists. Now, I mentioned those assists because that's not even what he did best. In high school, he set the state scoring record at St. Monica. Leon was at St. Monica High. He averaged 33.7 game at St. Monica, 41.5, 42 points a game as a senior. They won the CIF championship. And I never saw a more exciting player. If they had a 3-point line back in Leon's day when he played at St. Monica, he would have put that scoring record far out of reach. Okay, that was my boy, Leon Wood. Number 10 pick in the 1984 NBA draft. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, maybe he was a bust or something along these lines. Sure, things didn't work out. He went into a very loaded 76ers lineup. He got moved around, different coaches. These things happen. But we're talking about high school players, and nobody dominated games more, at least that I witnessed firsthand, than Leon. Now, I got to talk about New York City because that's only fair, but it also is the home to my argument for the greatest high school player of all time. Okay, Lou Alcindor. Then Lou Alcindor, of course, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Isn't that a cool shot on the streets of New York right now? He went to Power Memorial Academy, and that was in the Bronx in those days. PMA really had a strong reputation. It's no longer standing, PMA, but look at our boy.
He's twice as tall as I am.
He dominated. Let's talk a little bit about Lou Alcindor in high school. A 79-2 overall record. He tallied 2,067 points, so that was a New York high school record. They won the high school boys national championship one year. He was there 3 times. They were the New York City Catholic School champions, and that's what you had to play in his division. All right. Now we all know there's a great story about Lou Alcindor. He is this touted player, and he comes. Every school wants him. It's presumed he's going to go somewhere in New York City, but he makes that one trip out to Los Angeles, and he sits with Coach John Wooden. And at this point, John Wooden would have only won 1, maybe 2 NCAAs. So he wasn't quite the Wizard of Westwood reputation yet. But he sits with John Wooden, and Coach Wooden talks to him about everything but basketball. And it really appealed to Lou Alcindor. He also loved that there was black leadership at UCLA in those days, and that's what brought him out to Westwood. That was back in the days, NCAA, where you could not play varsity basketball as a freshman in college. So he played on the freshman team, right? They beat the varsity team in the first game of the year. Okay, they hammered them in the first game of the year, and they were the defending national champions, the varsity team. That tells you that was not only a good recruiting class, but he was unbelievable. So he goes 79-2 in high school. He goes 88-2 in 3 years at UCLA, winning 3 national championships, 3 most outstanding player awards. Hey, we know what he did in the bigs. He went on to be a 6-time NBA champion, 2-time finals MVP, 6-time MVP, all-time scoring leader. Why isn't this guy constantly in the argument as the greatest basketball player ever? I think too often people start and end their conversation with Magic. I mean, they should consider Magic, but with Michael Jordan. And I'm not dismissing Michael Jordan. I am just including this guy in the conversation. Okay, that's my guy, Power Memorial. That's fun. All right, and then before I turn it over to some of my experts that are coming in, and I'll just be moderating. And before I do, how about the greatest mythical high school basketball player of all time from either one of these 2 cities? Lots of choices. Remember, it's got to be from LA or New York, but I'm going with this guy. That's right. Jesus Shuttleworth taking it to what a great movie that was. Spike Lee just puts out these great movies. That was Jesus Shuttleworth is my greatest mythical player. I just threw that one in there. Hey, do you remember when Jesus Shuttleworth, check that, Ray Allen hit that corner 3, and then Miami went on like they needed that. LeBron was struggling, hit that corner 3, sent him into overtime. Miami wins, right? I was begging for the headline the next day. Jesus save, the king gets his title. What happened? Okay. All right, let's bring in the first of our participants today because we're going to New York City, or my boy Chris Lebron, Off the Ball Podcast. How you doing there, Chris?
Hey, Danny, what's going on?
What's up, man? All right, so you got any problems with me naming the greatest high school basketball player of all time in one Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
No, you can't go wrong with Lou Alcindor, man. He's it didn't matter what level of basketball he was at. He dominated every single level. High school, college.
Yep.
He absolutely did his thing in college, and then obviously in the pros, all-time leading scorer, all the championships, MVPs. I mean, you can't go wrong. He could go down as literally the greatest basketball player to ever played ever.
I like it. We had that conversation on your show. I want to give your show a little shout out off the ball. Before, people can certainly look you up. They can find you easily enough. Tell me a little bit off the ball. How'd you come up with that name?
So the off the ball name, I'm really big on moving off the ball. So when I play basketball, I'm always telling the guys, move off the ball, move, create. We got to get open. We got to find ways to get open without having the ball. So it's kind of stuck with me. And I ever said, if I ever have a podcast or a show, I think I'm going to call it Off the Ball. And then when I was coming up with a name, I was like, should I just go off my name, Chris LeBron or LeBron Show, something like that? I was like, I think that's kind of cheesy. So I was like, and then I just was like, okay, remember you always off the ball. I kept saying off the ball. I'm like, yep, it goes. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go with off the ball. So it kind of stuck, and then that's what it's been. It's Off the Ball podcast, and it's
nice.
I thought about like, oh, should I change it? Because I do have the name LeBron, so like maybe piggybacking off that name, maybe get some cheap listens. But I was like, you know what, Off the Ball works, and it's going well. So I'm sticking with it.
That's working for you. I was thinking of also naming my podcast after part of my basketball game, but the Illegal Pick podcast didn't sound. It just didn't have the right.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
or the disqualified for too many fouls. That didn't sound good either. So we just stuck with the sports choice. Yeah. All right. So, Chris, I'm going to make you sit a little bit and interact with my guests as they present some of the great high school players from Los Angeles. And we'll start to move you in as we go through this. I want to give a little shout out to the producer of today's show, which is Marley Rice. And Marley's handling all of the submissions by Chris, by Carlos, who'll be coming up, and by my next guest, Randy. She's handling all the submissions. So when they go to talk about a player, she's going to do the best she can to bring that picture up. All right. We're not exactly ESPN, but we're closing in. All right. Hey, so Chris, I want you to meet LA City Section Hall of Fame broadcaster. He's also part of the Southern California Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. He's called more games than me and you have ever even seen. This guy is a legend, not only out this way, but in the hearts and minds of all basketball aficionados. He's the future voice of the NBA. That would be the National Backgammon Alliance. He is Randy Rosenbloom. What's up, Randy?
Doing well, Lenny. Good to see you. And I think it's exciting that you're able to get LeBron during the NBA Finals.
We do what we do, Randy. We do what we do. So we're coming strong out of New York City with him. Randy, I know you got your respect for New York City ball, but I want you to present the first of your LA City section players, which for those that don't know, high school basketball is divided in different ways in different parts of the country, right? So out here, there is a southern section, and then there's a city section. And the city section had a lot more, I would say, like depth and strength in decades gone by, and just economics have played them into a different spot these days. But that said, what a great tradition they have. So, Randy, why don't you go ahead and tell Marley who your first one is, and we'll run that up.
Let's start with Gail Goodrich. Now, people around here remember the days at UCLA when he led them to their first 2 national championships. But before that, and of course, he was great with the Lakers and played on a world championship squad with Los Angeles. Gail Goodrich was the captain at Poly High School in Sun Valley. And what's so striking about what Gail did in high school is the simple fact in the championship game against Manual Arts, he scored 29 points. And you say, no big deal, right? 29 points, he's a great star. The team only scored 52, but they still won the game 52-39. And one more item about that game, guys. Gail Goodrich broke his ankle in the third quarter and still controlled the game. One of John Wooden's favorites, Gail Goodrich. That's my first great player from the LA City section.
All right, Crash, you just take that in. Hey, we're going to take our first call. Randy, hang on right there. We're going to take our first call from call in. Who do we got on the line? I think he goes by Dominic Flores. I think when he played, if I remember this guy right, he ended up being a Venice High School coach, but I used to refer to him as Pearl. He was like Pearl Washington, but when he balling out. Hey, Dom, you there?
I'm here.
You there, Dom?
Can you hear me?
Oh, do I have to put my headphones on, right? All right. We forgot about that part.
Sorry.
All right. Let's see.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. Hey, Dom, sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
Can you hear him?
All right. Dom, I heard my screener said that you had a nickname of Pearl back in the day, so that must mean you must have been some kind of baller. Who you want to talk about, Dom?
Well, the best high school basketball player in Southern California, I would have to go with John Williams at a Crenshaw High School.
Okay.
Man-child.
Nice. All right. I appreciate that, Dom. Now, did you happen to see him in person, or was that somebody you heard about from other basketball people?
No, back when I was about 12, 13 years old, attending St. Marques Elementary School in Venice, California. I used to watch John Williams and the Crenshaw Cougars play on Channel 56.
Nice. All right. I'm going to get our experts' opinions on that. Thanks for calling in, Dom.
Wait, I got a question. Is Randy Rosenbloom on the line?
Yes, he is. Randy, can you hear Dom all right?
Dominic, go ahead.
I want to pick your brain. Let's see how good you are. The best Southern California basketball player that nobody's ever heard of, Jabari Anderson, out of Banning High School.
Okay, that may be true. I would go with Greg Gorgon from Crescenta Valley, who played many, many years ago and averaged over 40 points a game and led the nation at Loyola. His dad, Ed Gorgon, is a legend. And I saw him one time in high school. Greg Gorgon scored 63 points the night I was there against Ralph Jackson, who later starred at UCLA. But Anderson, that's a good pick. And I'm glad you brought up, by the way, John Williams. I do want to address the John Williams comment, because even though I didn't put him on my list, he certainly was considered by many one of the great players ever to play in the LA City section. You're right, he was a man-child. He went on to LSU, played in the NBA. John Williams, now in the LA City Section Hall of Fame, was a phenomenal LA section.
All right, Dom, thanks for calling in. I wonder, maybe we didn't hear about him because he wasn't worthy of being on the show. Consider that, Dom. Just messing with you, Dominic. All right, we'll see you, Pearl. Okay, what do you think, Randy? Actually, John Williams, Crenshaw, that's a good pull. Crenshaw Cougars and Willie West, they were solid out this way. Hey, let's go into New York City. Chris LeBron, who's your first guy you got up?
Okay, so my list is a little different since I'm a little younger. So, I kind of went with guys that, kind of influenced me. So one of the main guys is Stephon Marbury. He went to Lincoln High School, and he's just a legend in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn. She's going, I want to Lincoln High School. She's like, no, you're not going to Lincoln High School. I was like, oh no, I want to go. I want to be like Stephon Marbury. He's always been one of my favorites, and just a legend in Coney Island. I have a lot of family in Coney Island, and the stories they tell me about him, it's just legendary what he was able to do. And then obviously, going to Georgia Tech for a year, and then getting drafted, top 5, going to Minnesota, and then having the career he had. It's unfortunate, when he went to the Knicks, me being a Knicks fan, it didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. But, Stephon Marbury's still a New York City legend here. And, he's done great things in China, coaching and playing. He's a legend over there. So, Stephon, I don't know if he's one of the best. He's definitely one of the best to in high school. And I really feel like I wish his Knicks career would have been better, but he's still one of my favorite players ever, coming out of New York City.
I like it. Yeah, Stephon Marbury, no doubt about it, he stands up. Randy, who's your second guy up?
Well, again, I'm not going in any particular order, but I'll
All
go
right.
to Sidney Wicks, since my first one was a Bruin and Gail Goodrich. Sidney Wicks later became a great Bruin and played on 3 consecutive NCAA titles for UCLA. But I first saw Sidney Wicks when I was in high school a long time ago when he played at Hamilton in a city playoff game against Eagle Rock. And Sidney was a big physical guy who could get it done in the paint, had perimeter skills. Later on at UCLA, he played against Artis Gilmore of Jacksonville in the NCAA tournament. Artis Gilmore, a 7-footer, and he was able to slay the Dragon as the shorter player. So Sidney Wicks was phenomenal at Hamilton High School. And for me, he was the first guy in person that ever caught my eye. When I saw him, I said, my goodness, this guy is phenomenal. And it proved to be true by what he did at UCLA, also did in the NBA. He had a great rookie season. He was the Rookie of the Year in the NBA, averaged over 24 points and 11 rebounds a game for the Portland Trailblazers. Sidney Wicks was a great player, but it all started back with the Hamilton Yankees in the LA.
Yeah, that's right. Hamilton Yankees. What is it about going to a school named after a president? You go to either Lincoln or Hamilton, and all of a sudden you're lighting it up. I like it. All right, Randy, let's get one more from you. I know you just so you know, Chris, we want you young guys to know, Randy comes prepared. He actually pre-produced a couple of spots. Let's look at one of those, Marley. How about which one did he do one on Dwayne Poley? Or Marques Johnson? Let's stay in the Bruin family here.
Marques Johnson, basketball, Crenshaw, 1973. Marques was an all-city basketball player at Crenshaw High in 72 and 73, earning Player of the Year honors in 73 while averaging over 26 a game. At UCLA, he played on an NCAA championship team in 1975. A number 1 draft pick of the Milwaukee Bucks of the NBA, Marques played in the league from 78 through 89, earning All-NBA honors in 79 and playing in 5 All-Star games.
He was really a point forward. He was ahead of his time. I mean, he was terrific with the Bucks. He was terrific with UCLA. In 1975, he was an instrumental piece. He was a young player, but he was one of the stars that helped Coach Wooden get his final NCAA championship in a victory over Kentucky. Marques Johnson was a phenomenal player. And what I love about Marques, and I've worked with him, he's done color commentary for me, is he still loves Crenshaw. He still goes back. He supports the program. Yes. He is a Cougar through and through. He's had many sons play after him. They've played at Crenshaw. They've played at UCLA. But it all started with Marques Johnson, who is really one of the great players, along with John Williams, ever to come out of the LA City section.
Beautiful. All right. Hey, Randy, while we got you rolling right here, but while we're doing that, we're going to bring in the other person in our panel. That's Carlos Haro. Randy, I don't know what you think, but, Carlos was one of those that was running gear back and forth for Nike and handing it off to some players in those post-Sonny Vaccaro moving from Nike to Adidas days. So I think it's exciting that we got a veteran from those shoe wars when there was a lot going on in those days. Hello, Carlos.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Danny?
Carlos, would I refer to you as a veteran of the shoe wars or perhaps a pawn of the shoe wars?
I would. I think at that age, I was probably a pawn and just excited to be part of the Nike family as they put me in. And I was just moving around and being around all these guys, and it excited me to be just around basketball. I could walk into any gym and just get in without having to go through anything because I was with one of the Nike guys. And also, by the way, the Nike family did take care of me when I went to Santa Barbara. They got me a job without having applied. I had a job coming into school. So not everything's all that bad.
And remember, the pawn can take the queen. And
pawn takes queen.
Right, Carlos?
That's what I say. Pawn takes queen.
Yes. Carlos, who's your first player you'd like to put on the table?
I'm going to put the guy that an art generation man-child. I'm going to put Shea Cotton. And the reason I put Shea Cotton from Mater Dei is that I was recently with all these agents, and they were all talking. One of them was Toby Bailey, and they started talking about NBA, greatest high school player. And everybody kept saying Shea Cotton, Shea Cotton. And all these younger guys like, who's Shea Cotton? And they're all like, YouTube. For them, Shea Cotton was just amazing. I saw him play when he was 13 years old against Magic, and he could hang. I mean, he literally, as a 13-year-old, could hang. He also had a body that was just like a man, and that's henceforth why the name Man-Child came in. And that picture right there was when he was the first guy that ever got Sports Illustrated article written about him. So I mean, this guy was really transcending basketball in his time in high school. So if a lot of people don't know about Shea Cotton, they gotta look him up, because this guy might have not made it to the NBA, but he was probably the first LeBron before there was LeBron. And if he had social media, I don't even know what he would have done, because he was selling out the Pond by himself. I mean, modern day would just sell out the Pond. I mean, this guy was amazing. If you guys haven't seen him, look him up on YouTube.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, LeBron, you familiar with the Man-Child documentary? Are you familiar with Shea Cotton as a player?
He sounds familiar, but I haven't. I definitely got to dive into it more.
Yeah, he's got a great documentary out. He was a guest on our show. He's got a wonderful documentary. He was such a dominant player out this way. All right, Chris, who's your next guy up from New York City?
So I got another Lincoln High School player, and I got Sebastian Telfair. Out of Lincoln High School, Coney Island. When I went to my high school, I was a freshman and he was a senior, and he played against my high school, and he let's just say he did good against us. He dropped 50 points and it was a PCL I think a quarterfinal game, and he definitely did damage to us. But he's another guy that I just grew up and I just absolutely love. He was a All-American. He was a finalist for the Player of the Year. 5-star. I love this game. He embraced New York City basketball with the handles and just the flash he had. He's the definition of New York City basketball, and he was just so flashy. And I was fortunate to get to watch him play, and I thought he was going to be just such a tremendous pro. Obviously, didn't go the way he wanted to, but definitely one of the best. He won 3 PCL championships, and just another New York City legend that I just absolutely love. He just, like I said, and another guy from Lincoln High School, like I said,
from Lincoln.
I wanted to go to Lincoln so bad. He was another reason why I wanted to transfer to Lincoln. But
Chris, aren't the Lincoln the rail splitters? I think is that
the rail splitters? Yeah,
I love that. Such a good nickname.
Yeah, everything about them.
Yep. I love when they meet them. Randy will tell you. Where's Randy? Randy will tell you the LA City section teams. Everyone, just like you already mentioned, the Hamilton Yankees or the Venice Gondoliers. I mean, we can go on and on with the Washington Generals, the Jefferson Democrats. They mean something, those nicknames, and that always got me fired up. All right, Randy, I know you got another one coming. Who you got?
Well, I got a couple more, but we have Eldridge Hudson from the
Carson. El Hud.
El Hud is a legend.
Yeah,
he was a big, physical, Magic Johnson type of player when he's playing for the Colts. Led him not only to the city championship, but he also led him to the state title in 1982. Averaged around 25 points a game, then went on to UNLV. Would have been a stud in the NBA, but he had a damaged knee, which curtailed his career. But when you look back at this guy, he was unstoppable in the paint. He had a mid-range game with a very feathery touch and could handle the basketball. A one-man gang. The Carson Colts are really not known for basketball. They're known for football. They're a city power for many, many years, have won double digits in LA City section championships in football. But El Hud got him not only a city championship in basketball, he won a state championship for the Colts in hoops. He is a legend.
Look at this now. I just noticed this. I haven't seen all these graphics, but if you look on that prep all decade team, you got 1, 2, 3 St. Bernard people up on that list. Corey Gaines, we know what he did. He's still coaching the game. Ed Stokes was great. Leonard Taylor. Yep. I was, I wouldn't say that I was dominating all of those guys in practice, but I will say I was fouling them. I'll give me that. I will say that I did. I left a mark on them. Carlos. Hey, yeah. Carlos.
I'm right here.
Who's next?
I'm gonna put so we got Shea. I'm gonna go with a guy named Tyson Chandler, and this guy was why I put this guy on is because he was a 2-time California player, and in high school he was a monster in scoring. However, when he went to NBA, he became a defensive stopper. I mean, really, But those Dominguez Compton teams, if you look at them with Tayshaun Prince, Bad Santa, they got Burns is the last name, but I can't remember. They would run. I mean, that was a dynasty in basketball, and I think you got to put this guy up. He was a 2-time, and I remember before he went right to the pros, he had a license plate. I think he's had franchise on it. Before he got it, he had to escalate. That was how much he thought about himself. So this guy was and play. You knew he was there, and it was incredible because he dominated offensively, and in NBA he just became a defensive. So that's probably another guy I would put in there as California guy.
Compton Dominguez High School, if I remember correct, that they were running game out that way. There he is. Okay. Hey, let's go back over to Chris Lebron. Let's go back to New York City. What do you got lined up for us?
I got another New York City legend. I got Rafer Alston, aka Skip to My Lou. He's from the Queens area. When I first moved to Queens, he was one of the first guys that I was, taught like, all right, you need to watch this guy because he's really good. So he's just another, another legend in New York City. Obviously, it's not so much what he did in high school. It's what he did, at Rucker Park, at Dykeman, at all these, these big time tournaments in New York City, and obviously was able to transition to the NBA. A lot of people didn't think his style of play. Obviously, another New York City guy who could dribble and all this, do all this flashy stuff, but was able to he goes to Fresno State. Waits a few years before he gets to the pros and has a nice solid career in the pros. So was able to do the transition from that street ball style to playing professional basketball. So Skip to My Lou, Rafer Alston, my favorite players growing up, especially living in Queens.
I love it. All right, Chris, you're definitely keeping in your wheelhouse, and I kind of like that we get some of those players. Let's bring back in Randy. Chris, stay here for a second. Not Carlos. That's Carlos. Let's bring back in Randy. Carlos.
What my name? I could go again.
Carlos.
I would draft him for fantasy.
I would imagine, but hold on. I got a point for you guys, Randy especially. So Rucker Park has such a legendary status in New York City, and when I go to the city, each time I make sure to go by Rucker Park and just kind of see what's going on there. It's great. Like I heard of Herman Helicopter before he was ever a thing, about his dunking in Rucker Park, and everybody goes and makes their name Rucker Park. What would you guys call the equivalent, Randy? What would you call the equivalent of the park out here in Los Angeles that could even, would it be the Venice Beach courts?
It could be, but I'm sure there's some courts in downtown Los Angeles where all the Crenshaw kids played probably on the blacktop there and did their things. And we talked about John Williams and Marques Johnson and so many great players that went through the LA City section downtown. And that really leads me to another guy, which is Dwayne Polee. We got to talk about Dwayne Polee.
Dwayne Polee is coming up next, because I think if we're going to make a rational argument who the greatest LA high school player was, he's got to be in that top three in that consideration. But Carlos, I wanted to ask Carlos really quick. Carlos, is there a park that you would consider the equivalent to Rucker Park here out in Los Angeles?
I'm not going to say a park, but I think the Drew League is got to be it. I mean, if you ever gone to the Drew League down in by Charles Drew Medical Center, it's and everybody there. I mean, you could just show up on a Saturday, Sunday, and you don't know who's going to play with the team. And I think that's the equivalent, because that literally you got pros, guys coming overseas, college players, and high school players. So I think the Drew League is probably the equivalent to Rucker.
Good ball.
I think now that I thought about it, guys, I think it's Reinert Park in Crenshaw's area. I think that's the name of the park.
It Nice. I like that we gave that out. All right, Randy, you got a guy, Chris Lebron. You sit back and learn, young man, because this guy,
I'm all ears.
This guy could straight out ball. Randy, did you do a pre-produced piece on this one? No. So go ahead and voice it live, Randy. You're a pro.
Dwayne Polee was just simply great. A lengthy guard who can defend on the perimeter. So quick. And what you love about him, and I'll get to his offensive game in a moment, he was a tremendous defensive player, a two-way performer. Think back to the early 80s. He's playing for Manual Arts. They're in the city final against Willie West's great Crenshaw team, and he had one of the greatest performances in LA City section history. scoring 43 points in the championship game in front of nearly 15,000 adoring fans. Dwayne Poley could score. And then he took his game to Pepperdine, where he was a star for the Waves, later went into the NBA. But when you talk about high school talent, Dwayne Poley first and foremost. And then his son, Dwayne Poley Jr., ended up being a star and a great star at Westchester High School later on. Dwayne Poley is a fabled name in the LA City section.
Yeah, that's a good pull, Randy. He would have been on my top list, no doubt about it. Okay, I like how we're going, back. We're dipping deep. We dip middle with Carlos, and we get something a little closer to home as far as more recent with Chris Lebron, speaking to the great New York City players. So you got another one, Chris?
Yeah, Ron Artest.
Oh,
another Queens guy.
Yeah.
His story, it kind of almost went like Mark Jackson, right? Almost went New York, because Mark Jackson goes, from New York, then plays at St. John's and gets drafted to the Knicks. It almost happened with Ron Artest, and I know Knicks fans till this day still get mad about the front office for not taking it. But Ron Artest just he embodies New York City with that rough, tough style of play. His physicality I kind of wanted my style of basketball to be like Ron Artest's, because I just love his physicality and just how he just gets on guys. And he's just a legend, and he's another guy that I was taught when I was growing up. You got to watch this. You got to watch Ron Artest, and if you want to play defense, you got to play defense like Ron Artest. I know he's had his name change, his Meta War piece, but Ron Artest, Queensbridge guy, he's just.
And one of the ways to play defense was with the leg of a table in a park and rec, right?
He's seen some stuff.
You had to regulate, and I think he took a leg off of some table and made sure that everything stayed on the up and up.
He's definitely seen some things, Ron Artest. He's definitely had a very interesting life, Ron Artest, to say the least.
That's a great poll. I like that one. One of the, I've seen so many great players out on this side of town, but, out in Artesia, I got a chance to see some great ones, and I think that might be the next one Randy's coming up with, or maybe that's Carlos. So let's go either Randy or Carlos. Who's up next on deck, Marley?
Carlos.
Well, I've actually gone through my guys. I will quickly say about Ron Artest, Meta. He was an assistant coach later on at Palisades High School in the Los Angeles City section, helped coach the girls there to championships, and his sons are playing college basketball at UC Irvine and Cal State Northridge. So he has a great tie. Of course, he played for the Lakers and won a world championship, but he has great ties to the Southern California area, even though he's a New York guy.
Fair enough. All right, Carlos, who you got up next?
You want to go? If you want to go Artesia, then I'm going to go with maybe two guys. Probably you could do the O'Bannon brothers, because they transcend. They were the first guys in our thing, and then you can go to Harden.
Or I watched him play several times. Carlos, when Marley asked you for 5 names and you gave 25, chances are that 20 of them won't make the list. So we won't be able to compliment you. Right now.
You set me up, and I'll talk to you. You told me to get a guy from Artesia, and I came up with 2. I actually came up with 3 guys that you had thought.
I could have. That's pretty good.
Pierce.
How about Paul Pierce? Tell us about Paul Pierce, Carlos.
Paul Pierce did not play at Artesia. He played at Inglewood, and he was the truth.
I know. Go ahead.
And then Paul Pierce probably plays Inglewood High School, and what I liked about him is he stayed local, played there when he could have gone to other places, and he actually was, if you ever saw him, he loves Inglewood High School, and the whole he actually, after he won the NBA championship, paid for the whole locker room at Inglewood High School. It has a parquet floor, and it looks like the Boston, like the Garden, like literally did that for all the players.
Yeah,
that's how much he loved Inglewood, and he just came in. I think that's probably one of the guys, if you ever got to see him in, he pretty much dominated the Bay League at that point when it was not fair. I mean, the guy just literally could do whatever he wanted. Probably one of the best players I saw personally, and local guy, and never left, kind of stayed local to Inglewood, and still true. He'll show up in Inglewood and still cheer for the Inglewood.
Carlos, what's the craziest situation you got in representing Nike, and or who is a memorable time when you handed off some gear?
I think the first time, I'll give you one really good one was I was at Westchester High School and I got told, this is a bag. Can you just drop it in? And the reason that they got it is they got realized that at that time I was in high school, had a car, was we could walk into gyms without anyone really noticing us because we were just a bunch of kids. Everybody else is playing basketball. And my job was you drop, talk to the guy, put a bag, and you leave. I never knew. I just assumed there was all basketball. But I dropped stuff for Shea Khan. I dropped stuff when Allen Iverson was here for one game. And that's when I saw him for the first time, and I thought this guy was legitimately the best player I've ever seen. So we were I would drive around, and that's how I literally would get everything from tennis shoes to things. I mean, I'll tell you a story about Shea Khan. Went to Shea Khan's house, and he had 2 closets, and he told me, anything in closet number 1 you can have. I'm gonna get new stuff, and literally he must have. No lie to you, about 100 shoes. And I looked at him and was like, they're size 12. I can't wear these. He goes, well, you can have whatever I want. I mean, literally, I picked shorts that were way too big. But he literally had so much stuff that was given to him that he didn't care. That's when I realized that he was at a different world of what these guys were getting at. So,
Randy, what would be the most memorable game you called of a high school boy that you personally called behind the microphone? What's the greatest performance, if you had to name it, from a high school basketball game?
Well, I'm going to throw another name out at you because he hit a game-winning shot in the semifinals and walked off the court, and they went into the city finals. His name is Renardo Sidney, played a few years ago, went on to Mississippi State. I thought when I saw him in high school, and he ended up scoring the final 11 points in that semifinal victory, which was awesome, all 11 points in the final 3 minutes of the game. I thought he was going to be a superstar. I thought at that point he was good enough to play for the Lakers, and I'm not kidding. As a high school player, he could shoot perimeter jumpers by making that winning shot in the game I called. The way he handled the ball, he passed it brilliantly for a big man. He was about 6'9". He could post up, but he had weight issues, and the weight really, I think, took its toll. He got to Mississippi State. He's played overseas, but never really made it the way everyone thought he would make it. But when Renardo Sidney, there he is at Mississippi State, he was phenomenal when I saw him at Fairfax High School. And again, his performance scoring the last 11 points in a city semifinal game was a thing of beauty.
I like it. Fairfax is a legendary school out this way, Chris. Fairfax and Westchester always going at it for the city section title. They've kind of replaced the Crenshaws and Manual Arts in that arena. And I thought when you were talking about a weight issue, I thought you were talking about he lacked patience, but I get it now. Chris, you got another guy from New York?
I didn't have another guy, but I'll add one. Felipe Lopez was just an absolute legend. Another guy I rooted for because, he was Hispanic, and he was in a lot of Hispanics that were really, dominating in the basketball seat. So, him coming from the Dominican Republic and all that, and going to Rice, and he was a part of the Gauchos too, and he was just another guy that I was taught about. You got to watch Felipe Lopez play. So he's definitely another guy. This is so many guys: Roch Strickland, Mark Jackson, Chris Mullin. I mean, there's so many. Kemba Walker is another guy. Unfortunately, the New York City basketball scene hasn't been so great of late. We definitely it hasn't been so great lately, but the history of New York City basketball is just so great. But yeah, Felipe Lopez, St. John's, he was just so good. He was special in high school. But I wish, like I said, another guy I wish he would have had a better career in the NBA and all that. He had some also at St. John's had some struggles, but definitely high school, he was an absolute beast.
Carlos, I would imagine Felipe Lopez and Shea Cotton almost took the same kind of paths. They were both these huge sensations that probably too many expectations were placed upon them that may not have helped them in the long run. What do you think, Carlos?
I agree. Those guys too, and also the size. Both of them were about 6'4", and they were in high school were monsters because you're playing against some kids that are like your center's about as tall as 6 feet. And they didn't develop. I mean, they had to go into guards, and that's where I think Felipe, actually, if you look at it, had a pretty good pro career, is now telecasting. I think Shea's career really went south once he left Mater Dei. And I guess just a quick question for Randy: did you ever call Gilbert Arenas down there
It's funny you bring him up. He played for Howie Levine at Grant High School. I wasn't calling games when Gilbert played. Obviously, he played in the Pac-12 and went on and had an illustrious career in the NBA. He could really score the ball. I did not do any of Gilbert's games when he was at Grant. I live in the San Fernando Valley. In fact, I live about 3 miles from Grant High School where he played. He's a legendary figure in the Valley. He could flat out score the ball, but I did not call any of his games.
All right. Well, fellas, this has been a good roundtable. Anybody want to throw any final words in about high school basketball? Randy, you go first, buddy.
I know since Chris didn't get to him, I know I mentioned Greg Gorgian from the Southern section. I have to add one other guy, and that's Raymond Lewis, who played at Verbum Day. He is considered by many one of the greats of all time. He ended up turning down out of Verbum Day the offer from Coach John Wooden to go to UCLA and played at Cal State LA. He thought it was a better fit for his style, where he averaged nearly 40 a game. I did see him. I did call one of his early games. He was unreal. Cat quick, 6'1" point guard, absolutely unstoppable, unbelievable shooting touch. He had 73 against UC Santa Barbara in a game. Just a phenomenal player. And there are, you hear rumors and murmurs that he ended up playing against Michael Cooper in a summer league game and scored 60 on Cooper. So he was unbelievable. Got drafted, went to Philadelphia, had contract issues and flamed out. He got in a big squabble with Philadelphia. They selected Doug Collins and him. They went with Collins. But most people believe Raymond Lewis was better than Collins and would have been an NBA superstar had he gotten his agreement done with the Sixers.
Raymond Lewis went to Verbum Day out this way, Chris LeBron, and back in the late 70s, nobody stood up like Verbum Day did. I mean, they put up some teams that could play with anybody. They used to have like a 6'8" point guard in Cliff Pruitt. They had Kenny Fields down low, and Raymond Lewis was out of that tradition. I'll tell you what, those were some of my greater memories of high school basketball, is watching Verbum Day come in and play at St. Bernard High School. And that was when I was like in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Watching that was unbelievable. I think we got another caller coming in.
Got Scott on the phone. If you can talk about
Okay. All right, boys. We got Scott on the phone. He's got a couple questions. Hi, Scott.
Hey, how you doing, Denny? Great show.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep. Hey, Chris, love your logo.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So, the one that I was thinking of maybe started off with Lou Alcindor, and I think Denny said something about possibly being the GOAT, greatest of all time. And, I was wondering how the other panelists felt about that statement. And then the other thing, and I'll let you talk about that, is the one out of New York that gets up there in the top 10 all time, Dr. J. And so I was just wondering if Lou Al's the GOAT, or is Michael the GOAT? Is Magic the GOAT? Who's the GOAT?
He's getting outside of our areas. But hey, Scott, that's actually two great questions. Let's see what the panelists think.
I'm not shy, Denny, so I'll answer it. I don't think any of those guys are the GOAT. I don't think any of them are. The greatest individual player of all time is Wilt Chamberlain. He holds all the records, physically dominant. Even at the end of his career, he was able to hang with Lou Alcindor in the NBA when Kareem came into the league. So I think Wilt Chamberlain. Now, the greatest individual performance.
We're talking New York and LA only. Didn't Wilt? Where'd he grow up? Didn't he grow up in Philly or something?
Yeah, he's from Philadelphia, but I'm just addressing who's the greatest
high school player. All right.
And that gets me to Dr. J. That was the greatest individual performance I ever witnessed in person at the Forum. He played in a sickle cell all-star game to raise money for the charity, and I was sitting down on the floor. He ended up scoring 48 in the game, and he dunked on Bill Walton in front of me. I was underneath the basket. And he dunked on Walton 3 times. He posterized him in the same half. Dr. J's performance in that All-Star game, for me, is the greatest individual performance in person I've ever seen.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I could go down that road, but we got to stay with our New York and LA guys. All right, and so Chris LeBron, last thoughts?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask a question, and maybe you guys could help me out with this. Obviously, New York City basketball, so much history and all that, but it seems like I maybe say the last 15 years or so, it's definitely taken a few notches down. And I've been trying to find information like why is this the case? Why is New York City not producing the talent they have? So maybe you guys can help me figure that out, because I just doing a lot of research. I see there's so many New York City guys that are from New York City in the NBA, but they don't finish their career playing in New York City basketball. They're going to Jersey, which is taking over that label as the best in the tri-state area. They're going to Connecticut, they're going to Pennsylvania, Florida, all these other states. Why is New York City kind of taking a step back as far as producing talent? Maybe you guys can help me out with that.
Carlos, talk a little bit about those, the academy schools and so forth.
Sure. I think, like you said, like New Jersey in the 2000s started becoming the parochial school. So all the New York guys were going to the parochials, the St. Anthony's, the St. Patrick's, which is now the Patrick schools. And then they realized that these guys were on national TV. They were getting documentaries. Then they decided, hey, prep schools are going to be the new thing. So they started going to Mount Vernon. I mean, Kevin Boyles, who was coaching at St. Patrick's, ended up at Mount Vernon. They started going to Oak Hill. And now it is they have their own circuit. They travel throughout the country. I mean, they have a national schedules. I mean, literally, they are in different states. And I think as a player, that's where you want to be. You want to be on ESPN as a 15, 16-year-old kid you get notoriety. Now you have Instagram. And I think playing locally and playing at your high school, that allure is no longer when you have that opportunity to play at this school. So I think everybody's getting poached. I mean, even in Los Angeles, I don't know what it'll be this year after the pandemic, because I think a lot of kids are going to go into that prep route because that's what they want to keep playing, and they want to have the notoriety that they can still play. And at the prep schools, they're going to go play. So I think that's going to be one of the factors why a lot of the New York and anywhere there's talent, they're going to start going there. And I think these are going to become like the soccer academies in Europe, where you just take the best, you put them in the best, and they play, and you develop them. I mean, I think that is the future of prep basketball, and the local guys are just going to be local guys, and some will come out, but most of them are all going to be already at age 13 headed to these prep schools everywhere and anywhere.
There is one exception to the rule. That's Sierra Canyon, because of Bronny James playing there. They're a magnet, like one of those prep schools. So they're getting players from all over the country. Andre Chevalier, the coach there, does a terrific job. A lot of their games are on ESPN3 or even ESPN. So there are still some outliers like a Sierra Canyon, but these kids are going to move around and go to prep schools.
Yep, I think that's a good call. All right. I think go ahead, Carlos. Last thoughts, buddy.
Yeah, the last thought. I mean, Sierra Canyon is, but here's the problem they're having. CIF will not let them play against the prep schools. So at one point, Mikey Williams, who just left, could actually, in theory, never play against Bronny. And even they won't even play in club because one is an Adidas guy, another is a Nike guy. So you're looking at two of probably the best sophomores might not play because of rules. Because Sierra Canyon cannot, by CIF rules, play anybody who doesn't play for a state title. So I think eventually these guys are going to have like the Super League. And even though Sierra Canyon did have a national schedule last year, they did not play. They cannot play Oak Hill. They cannot play Mount Vernon. And they can't even be in tournaments where they're scheduled to play any of them in the tournament. So I think that's also going to be a factor eventually when a lot of these guys want to be playing against these top players, and they realize if I go to my local high school, I can't, even if we have the top guys, we can't play because of CIF.
Those are some good points, fellas. Hey, appreciate you doing, getting up front. Good job by our producer, Marley, pulling the triggers back there. So I appreciate you guys all coming in. We were repping the New York and LA boys. Hey, next time around, I want to dive into the girls' side of basketball. And, I know on this show alone, we had Juju Watkins on it. So I got her. I got dibs on that one because she can bring it. Also, back in the day, there was this one highly recruited 8th grader out of St. John Chrysostom School in Inglewood, and her name was Martha Jimbo. She scored 57 points in one half. So I got that in my back pocket too, right? No doubt. Okay. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you next time around. Let's go. Keep LeBron on. Oh, LeBron. Hold on a second. Keep LeBron on. She put it with a small B, so I know I was talking about you. I thought she wanted me to go to LeBron. Hey, LeBron, push your podcast a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about it. Who's your upcoming guest?
Yeah, so Off the Ball podcast, you can find at all podcast platforms. Right now, I just did a NBA mock draft show. I've done 4 of them. So that was the last show I did. I did it a few days ago. I had some really great guests. I had a guy from NBA Draft Junkies, Hoops Intellect, and a few other guys, and we did a 1-round mock. And so you can find that on the YouTube channel. And I'm actually gonna work on the audio version and upload that right after I get off here and do that. So that'll be up, and you could listen to that on all podcast platforms.
Love it.
Wherever your favorite podcast is, so you can listen to that. So, but yeah, that's a project I've been doing, and that's definitely one of my favorites. And I'm going to keep doing a couple more as the draft gets closer.
Excellent. On my show, I had these 2 lawyers that break down NCAA sports, and we broke the Pac-12 coming back to play football story on the show. Next day, Dan Patrick steals it from me, right? Okay. Hey, when I was on your show, I felt like we broke Doc Rivers to the 76ers.
Yes, he was 76ers.
Right?
Yes, we did break that.
Retrospective and look back in history, we're breaking things. So,
yeah, man, that's what we got to do. We're breaking news, man.
That's it. Hey, appreciate you, Chris. Stay safe out there in New York. We'll do the same in LA.
Yes, thank you so much, Danny, for having me on.
Yeah, buddy. Okay. Hey, that was fun. I like diving into that. There's such a rich tradition of all kinds of sports of both genders that go back, that really form these memories. And sometimes we got to get them out and live them up a little bit. So that's why I like to shout out my boy Leon Wood today. And also shouting him out because he's still an NBA referee, right? So he's still an NBA referee. And so I'm hoping in some circuitous way, this makes it to him and he'll go, I remember Denny. Let's go on his show. So come on my show, Leon. You're my idol when I was a kid. Okay. Hey, let's see. That would be the Los Angeles Lakers, 1 win away from number 17. Going to take it down because that's when we notch it up, number 17, and we tie the Celtics. And we're up 1-0 on the Padres in the best 3 out of 5 National League Championship Series. And I got to go see that game right now because it's on. All right.
Debates are on.
And the debates, yes, they are. That's good times. Good times all the way around. Appreciate you being on the show. I'm Frank Cannon, and I'm out.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon? What's a guy got to do to get a bone? Get it?
Thanks for watching and listening. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is produced by me, Marley Rice, and Christine Jinbo, and edited by bad boy Bobby McCall. Original music courtesy of Lennon Music Production, and original images courtesy of Sienna Lennon Photography. A big thank you to all of our contributors of the show. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories Inc. and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you watch and listen. Make sure you press that subscribe button, give us a review, leave a comment. It will really help us grow the show. And you know what else will help us grow the show? Head on over to patreon.com/Denny Lennon to get some never-before-seen videos, pictures, interviews, and so much more. We are all over social media and constantly sending out clips on Facebook, conducting fun polls on Twitter, going live on Instagram, and more. To find all of our social media links, head on over to sportsstoriespodcast.com. SSDL proudly supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation and the Heroes Movement. Links to how you can support and help these foundations can be found on our website. We also want to give a big thank you to all of our partners of the show. So, as Coach Lennon would say, any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email me, Marley, at info@sportsstoriespodcast.com. We want to thank all of our followers and listeners, and we will see you next time.
Check it out, bud.